that, we will welcome Kim and get started.
Sounds good. All right, thanks, Tracy.
Yeah.
Sarah, are you coming back on camera or are you going to stay off camera? She's on mute. Maybe she went somewhere. There she is. Oh, now you're on mute.
She's eating. We don't care if you eat, Sarah. Yeah. You can eat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You can eat.
Be on camera, but I totally get it. Though you decide. I just wanted to know so I know how to kind of where to focus. So as Tracy said, I'm a licensed psychologist. I'm also the founder of Water's Edge Counseling and Healing Center in Burnsville. And I've always had a specialty in my practice when I did more therapy. Right now I'm doing more management than therapy, with working with clients with eating disorders and disordered eating. And so emotional eating is the topic for tonight. And I'm just going to bring to you guys some tools that you can use, because frankly, we're all emotional eaters. And so it's very informal. Please ask questions along the way. If you have questions, we can adjust and go wherever we want. So we got about 25 minutes or so left on time. And really what I want to do is cover some really basic things for you, but tools that are just good in a toolbox, and also really normalize emotional eating. I think especially when we're on a health journey and focusing on goals, we can forget what it means to be normal. And then what I see a lot with people is they do pendulum swings. They go all in, and then they go all out. And then they go all in, and then they go all out. And the hardest part that I have witnessed in people's journeys is trying to find that moderation level. Like, what is an acceptable lifestyle for me at this particular season of my life? And that ability to allow some flexibility given the season that you're in, right? Like, my goal for myself is like, I'd like to work out 5 times a week. The reality of my current season is I can barely get in 3 times a week, and I can't do what I really want to do because I have some significant neck issues going on that prevents me from doing any weights and a lot of the different workouts that I would prefer to do, and that I really like how my body feels when I do. So there's a season always of adjustment and being able to say, what's sustainable for me right now? What do I need to do right now? And being able to have grace for yourself to say, in this particular season, this is what I need to do, and set the goal really of not doing that all or nothing, right? And if you stay out of all or nothing, that will help you, especially around eating and exercise pattern, to psychologically stay in the game. Like, it is a life journey. It's not a 1-week journey, right? The idea is that I'm never going to quit working out. I'm never going to quit paying attention to moderations in my eating and noticing how I feel when I eat certain ways. That's a life journey. I don't have to master it right now, right? And so having that grace for yourself, I think, is really important. But for some specific tools around emotional eating, the very first tool that I think is most important is never restrict. Don't let yourself get too hungry. One of the biggest triggers to overeating and or full-blown binge eating is getting too hungry, because the body responds in kind of a desperate mode when we get too hungry, and then we eat faster and we eat mindlessly. And then when we're eating faster and mindlessly, our brain and our stomach they can't keep up. The brain doesn't keep up with what's happening in the stomach. And the stomach gets overly full before it communicates to the brain, I've actually had enough. And so that's like the biggest trigger, or the biggest thing that you can do, is consistently eat. I know your pattern. I'm a person who does much better if I eat more of my food in the morning and I eat a little bit lighter in the afternoon and the evenings. That's just what works best for me. Also tends to be, I work out in the morning. So when I am working out, I'm using more calories. My body is hungrier. So I know I need to allow myself more food in the morning. And if I don't, then I am going to kind of be hungry all day and be more likely to be grazing and snacking and reaching for stuff at work. The other tip is, don't let yourself get dehydrated. we oftentimes have interpret hunger signals as wanting food when actually there's signals from the body saying, I need to drink more water. So hold yourself to a hydration plan. It's really one of the kindest things you can do. There is a research recently out that people who are hydrated actually wake up more joyful. You actually have more energy in your body than when you're dehydrated. And so I've been able to notice that when I am not drinking as much water as I would normally do, I have a hard time sustaining my energy. I just feel like, oh, I get so tired so much quicker. Because I've been somebody who's been really focused on hydrating my body for many years. I had a good routine on that. So you want to notice your patterns and be thinking some of these basic things like, I feel more tired. I feel like I want to reach for food more. Am I actually getting enough? You know, it's kind of contradictory to emotional eating, but it's one of the first things that I would have people look at. Are you actually eating enough? Are you actually drinking enough that your body can go, oh, okay, we're good. Like I trust her to give me the food I need, to give me the water I need. And it goes into maximizing the production or the use of that energy. It doesn't try to hold on to it. But then there's times that we do just emotionally eat. And when we emotionally eat, the definition of emotional eating is eating out of an emotional state, trying to calm that emotional state or avoid that emotional state rather than eating for nourishment. It's actually wanting to use food as like a coping strategy to either numb or to celebrate something. And so the food itself is not used for the original purpose of the body, right? So we eat, our primary goal for eating needs to be nourishment of the body, the energy to maximize our overall mental health, physical health, okay? And so when we're meeting that, then we can add, I like to call them fun foods. A lot of times emotional eating are those forbidden foods. I like to change that, take away the judgment of those foods and refer to them as, you know, foods that are less nutritionally dense, foods that are more fun for me to eat, they're more rewarding for me to eat in terms of enjoyment, okay? So take away the judgment, especially if you have a history of emotional eating or doing that pendulum swing. We want to start stripping away those rules and instead step into, okay, overall, I feel better when I don't eat sugar, but I really like sugar. And so if I myself participate in a no sugar plan, mentally, I know I would feel better. But physically, for me to do that, I'm never successful at it. And so for me, I've had to change that goal to, I want to consistently be monitoring how much sugar I eat. And when I can, and I have the strength to do so, I really want to limit that and try to eat something else first. So I'm looking for foods that satisfy my sugar craving, et cetera. So, but I'm not taking away, I'm not putting a firm line in the sand, I can't have sugar. And for me, that works okay in my body. For some people, they're super sensitive to caffeine, to sugar, to the foods that can be on that forbidden list. And so you have to recognize it for yourself. Other people, when just having the sugar is kind of like crack. It's like you can't get enough once you start eating. And if that's you, then you might have to have firmer boundaries around that or go through a season with firmer boundaries. So the idea is everybody's individual. And it's most important for you to be tracking yourself, what works for you in this particular season, at this particular time, right? This week I've had the last couple of weeks, I've just had a really crazy busy schedule, busier than normal. And I had to make some adjustments in my daily lifestyle. Normally in the past, I would have been at a time like I would have tried to fight that and push my way through it. But instead, it's so much healthier for me to just say for the next 2 weeks, this is what my balance needs to look like. Right? This is how I need to eat. This is how I need to plan, or this is where I need to just give myself some grace and trust myself to get back to my longer term plan after this really hectic couple weeks. Okay. So let's go into some skills that are very specific to emotional eating. I'm going to share a screen and share with you a page from a book. I believe it's Intuitive Eating. One of my providers at work just sent me this because it's a different format than what I've used in the past. So I am going to share my screen for you. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yep.
Okay, so one of the things you want to do when you're looking at emotional eating is you want to get to the cause of it. Like, why am I wanting to eat right now? So essentially what you're doing a hunger check-in. And if you guys want, you can take a picture of this. If that's easier for you, whatever you want to do is fine with me. But ideally what you're doing is recognizing, okay, am I physically hungry? If you're physically hungry, you need to eat, right? I mean, that there's nothing that's going to meet physical hunger but food. And so number one is have you eaten in the last 2 to 4 hours, depending on time of day and what your routine is. For me, I do better if I eat every 2 to 3 hours. Okay. So if I am wanting to reach for foods that I know are more emotional foods for me, question for me is, am I actually needing to eat? I might not even physically feel hungry in my stomach, but if you physically feel hungry in your stomach, you probably have waited too long to eat. There's a lot of other cues to hunger besides stomach growling. Lightheaded, feeling a little tired, can't concentrate as much, feeling a little crabby, just kind of low energy, lethargic, desire, mind kind of wanders, a desire to move toward food, even though you're physically not feeling hungry. So you have to understand how does hunger signal show up for you? Right? For me, fatigue is one of the, like, I just crash. It's like my blood sugar just goes whoof, and I lose energy. So know if you're hungry. If you're physically hungry, you need to eat something. Also think about how much do you need some water? Then if that's not the case, then you could go through this list and say, okay, are any of the other reasons present for me? The goal is you want to identify what's the emotional reason you want to eat, because then you can pair the skill you use or the tool that you use to respond to that emotional eating. Okay, so I'm just going to go through these quickly for time. But some of the common emotional reasons that we eat include anxiety, where we use food to calm ourselves. Boredom, we eat as something to do. And boredom, I also see a lot in people, like when you're at work or you're working on a project and you need a mental break. A valid reason to get up and leave what you're doing is to go to the bathroom or get something to eat or to the vending machine. So those are like reasons that if you're at work, your boss won't get mad at you. But if you're taking a mental break, like I just need a mental break and I'm going to go out for a walk, there's risk that you're going to judge that yourself as being, not acceptable, or that your boss or some of your coworkers are going to judge that. At Water's Edge, we have a single level building. It's a really long building. And our staff is trained, like if you're having a hard moment or you just need to get out, we want to see you outside doing a lap. Like take a mental break and get outside and just walk around the building. So we'll regularly see our team members just out walking around the building instead of going to food. Okay. Not that they don't go to food ever, but it's additional strategy. Okay, so anxiety, boredom, bribery. You finished your homework, now you can have a treat, kind of like a reward. Celebration, food accompanies most events, right? Birthday parties, weddings, funerals, all of it. Emptiness, eating from a lack of spiritual meaning, like I don't know my purpose, I feel void, I feel alone. Excitement, using food as something fun. Feeling lonely or unloved, using food as a friend. Frustration, anger, or rage, eating as a way to release the energy of those emotions. Loosening the reins, eating as an outlet from self-imposed militaristic or perfectionistic life. That's that all or nothing stuff. mild depression. When you eat carbohydrates, they increase serotonin, the feel better neurotransmitter. Self-soothing when upset, eating as a comforting or consoling activity. Procrastination, I'll do that task after I eat something. Reward, I just closed that deal, now I deserve that big piece of chocolate cake. And then stress, food for relief. Okay, you might notice like one or two of those maybe stood out for you. They maybe not. I would say also that reward part, I just closed the deal. I often see people reach for foods as a way to help transition. I just finished this, now I need to transition to this. And I do so, I kind of check out in the middle by reaching for food. And so it becomes a transition object. So that's a very real thing, this like concept of transition object. So you can think about that. Any questions on these or any relationship? Anything standing out? Okay. So the next thing you want to do after you identify that, hey, I'm actually not physically hungry because I just ate a couple hours ago. Within the last couple hours, I had some health, a couple of what do we call macronutrients. And so, I will also go through, are there any food groups that I'm missing? Because sometimes I have a craving for emotional eating when I actually need to eat vegetables. I don't eat vegetables emotionally. And so I go to sweets and chocolates and animal crackers. Those are my emotional eating foods. Vegetables, I've never emotionally ate vegetables. But what happens is because I so do not like vegetables, I have to be really intentional about eating them, which means they're the food group that I'm often short of in my diet. And so if I'm having I'm just like, ugh, and I feel like I want to emotionally eat more, I'm having cravings for the foods I would emotionally eat, I actually stop and say, have I actually eaten vegetables the last couple of days? Because my body will send me a signal that I'm eating a certain nutrient, but it won't tell me what nutrient. It'll just give me a craving. I want to reach for food, and the last thing I want to reach for is a salad. But when I know I haven't eaten vegetables, I make myself eat it. Sometimes with the bargaining, if I eat the salad, then I can have the chocolate. If I still want it, I feel so much better, and I may or may not still eat the chocolate. All right, so is there a food group that's hardest for you to consistently eat? And so when you're reaching for food, you can go through this list of emotional triggers, as well as those questions about when's the last time I ate, am I hydrated, and is there a food group or a nutrients that I might be missing? Okay. So once you identify that let's say you've now eaten enough water, you're drinking, that you're hydrated. And if you're too tired and fatigued, like you literally didn't sleep well, you're short on sleep, your body you'll be prompted to reach for food to bring in energy. So fatigue and tired is one to distinguish as well. Your body will just keep wanting to have you eat as a way to kind of stay awake. Okay. So once you identify why do I want to eat, you ruled out that there's actually a biological craving, then you want to add some basic concepts of acceptance. And there's a technique called STOP through the DBT. It's called dialectic behavioral therapy. And STOP means actually stop. And then it's take a step back, observe, and then proceed with caution. Proceed slowly. Okay, so stop is the S, take a step back, observe, and then proceed slowly or mindfully. What you're doing is you're just trying to slow down the impulse to reach for that food. And you're just noticing, wow, okay, why do I want to eat right now? Okay. So one of the ways that this played out for me several years ago, my family lives in Iowa, and I will sometimes just meet up with them, various family members in Rochester. And I did that one day, and somebody said something that just landed wrong with me, and I kind of got pissed off about it, to be quite honest. And I was like, just rah, 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 rah. But I wasn't going to say that to them because I really wanted to just enjoy them because I haven't seen them for a while, but I was actually mad. And as soon as I got in the car to start driving back, I'm like, I want chocolate. And I pulled into the gas station, and I'm like fully aware, like this is the skills in action right here. Okay. I'm not hungry because we had lunch. I had a good lunch, I've hydrated, and I know that I'm mad. And I know that I'm stopping to get chocolate because I'm mad. And I sat for a moment. So I stopped, took a step back. I didn't continue the movement forward into the gas station first. I noticed what was going on for myself. And then I proceeded mindfully to say, I know that I'm emotionally eating right now because I'm mad. And I'm going to let myself do it. So I proceeded to go into the gas station. I mindfully and intentionally bought some chocolate. And I'm driving back to the cities, eating my chocolate and thinking, this really isn't very good. Mindful, emotional eating doesn't really work. So I ate far less chocolate than if I wouldn't have done the stop technique, because I added mindfulness. Like, I know that I'm emotionally eating, but I also knew that the chocolate, when I was just trying to enjoy the chocolate, it wasn't actually going to resolve the issue. It wasn't actually going to make me feel better because I was fully aware that I was mad. Right? So adding mindfulness to emotional eating doesn't mean that you don't emotional eat, but it can mean that you might not eat as much.
Mhm.
Right? It can mean that you might be sitting in front of the gas station that day, like me, and decide, you know what? I think I'm just going to call this family member instead. Right? Or it might mean I'm actually going to allow myself to emotionally eat, but I'm going to buy a smaller candy bar instead of the king size candy bar that I really thought I was going to buy before I stopped and slowed myself down. Okay. So whatever reason, the technique or the intervention with that particular reason. Okay. Then there's different things. There's a technique called postpone, where you still use the stop. And you're like, okay, I really want emotion, but I'm going to try to wait 10 minutes. And you just do postponement. I'm just going to wait 10 minutes. And then during that 10 minutes, you want to try to do other things to help you release whatever or identify whatever the emotion is that you're feeling. Okay. You might do some journaling. You might call somebody and even just talk about distracting things. You might notice that your body wants to do some stretching. You might drink some water. You might do some spiritual practices, some prayer, or you might put on your favorite music that helps you feel upbeat, or maybe you need to have a cry. And so you're just giving yourself 10 minutes to try some other things and see if the urge passes, right? All emotional eating urges will pass with time. You might have another round later, but the one urge will pass, okay? And it will pass better or more like in a completion if you don't try to stuff it down. Okay, so each one of these on this list, and I added some more as we've been talking, you might want to think about what are one or two things I can identify are options that I could do before I let myself emotionally eat. Okay, so for some people, the progress or the place to start is I'm not telling myself I'm not going to emotionally eat. For one, I would say that's unrealistic. But two, I'm going to try to slow myself down and think of one or two other things that I can do so I feel better about what emotional eating looks like for me. Okay. Remember, emotional eating is going to a wedding and engaging and participating in the wedding meal. That's emotional eating. It also nourishes us. But it's a part of a celebration. Okay. We tend to think that the emotional eating is like, oh, I had the cake, or I had the second piece of cake, or I had the second glass of wine. But the idea is that even though we need nourishment, we come together and we have a meal together to celebrate together. Right? There's goodness in that. And so we want to strip away some of the negativity of this concept of emotional eating and try to normalize it. But overall, like the final thing I would say, the best way to help you be more aware and maybe managing emotional eating is to become really healthy with your emotional self. Okay. That's truly the best way to minimize emotional eating from a negative standpoint. And if everybody's okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Is that everybody got what you want from this?
Oh.
Okay. Okay. So again, the best way to really minimize emotional eating is to become healthy with your emotions. So just like you're working out your bodies, you're learning new techniques, you're doing new routines, you're learning new skills, you're letting your body go through some aches and pains and hurts because you're pushing it. We need to do that same thing with our emotional selves. We need to allow ourselves to stretch emotionally, to learn to endure the energy experience of emotion, because that's what emotions are. It's energy in the body that wants to move. And each emotion wants to move in a different way. Anger has a certain upward, outward emotion. Sadness has kind of a collapse. Joy is up. And so each energy has a different way of wanting to express itself. And some of us have to go through seasons where we're having to learn to get reacquainted with the natural release in the body. We're created to experience emotions. Emotions inform us of information. It tells us what's going on. So, but we often in our culture, we're raised to say emotions are bad. Like you have to shut that down. And so that's the best way is to really become fully aware, continue to practice mindfulness, noticing, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? All of that's going to help you identify, oh, am I having emotions right now that I don't really want to deal with? All right. So any questions before we wrap up? I kind of just talked a whole bunch of stuff at you. So hopefully you can look at your notes and digest it a little bit more and have some discussions ongoing about this topic. It's a huge topic. So it's not something that if you struggle a lot with mindless emotional eating, it takes time to change that pattern. Right. And so I would say kindness would be the last thing I would tell you is just let yourself be kind to yourself about this is a life journey.
It's good. Good
Okay.
stuff. I think one of the things I found is when I come home from work, that is a transition and I feel like I need to eat at that point. Yeah. So I make it a point to, I mean, I know that about myself. So I have, like you, that's where I'm like eating vegetables on the way home because I know that if I do that, that's going to prevent me from eating the bag of almonds when I get home, or I'll drink my Spark or something in the car. So I'm not coming home hungry because that's a walking disaster.
Exactly. Exactly.
So.
Yeah. So you might all each before you wrap up tonight, or before you go to bed, is think just like what's one area in your life that you're most vulnerable to some of that negative emotional eating, that eating that's kind of counter to some of the goals that you're working on right now. And what's one thing that you could do differently that's not just about white knuckling it? Like Tracy talked about, oh, I eat some vegetables or eat something on my way home. So I'm not walking in so hungry because that's a vulnerability, right? Maybe it's bedtime at night, maybe loneliness kicks in. And what's something different that you could do there? So, all right.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else, Tracy?
No, I think you just gave me an idea for, usually we do a quiz after these things, but I think I'm just gonna have people respond to that final thought. That's a teacher in me.
Perfect.
So, yeah,
There you
and
go.
just
Yeah.
in order to get the points you get points for these things. So in order to get the
Yeah.
points, you have to identify an area that, or a trigger for you and something you want to do differently. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Anything
Thank
from
you.
anybody else? No.
All right. Well, good luck on your guys' journey and have fun with the program. And I think it's great. And it's fun to do stuff like this and oriented about health in a community and adding some fun and stuff. So enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care,
Thanks,
guys.
Kim. Yep, you
You
too.
bet. Bye,
See you
Tracy.
later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Tracy, do you need me to move you back to host to wrap anything up, or are you good?
I think I'm just gonna leave the meeting and that ends the recording. So,
Sounds
and then I
good.
gotta upload it for about an hour.
All right.
So, okay,
All right,
thank you
thanks,
so
Tracy.
much. This was great. We'll talk to you later.
Absolutely.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.